everyone. My name is Abby Adair. I'm the Vice Chair of the Young Nonprofit Professionals Network in Detroit, and in my day job, I'm the Donor Experience Manager at the Children's Center in Midtown Detroit. So this session today, Rebranding Your Failures, is a part of YNPN Detroit's year-long partnership with Co.act this year, entitled Social Impact Leader Series. And we're so excited to bring you today's session, which I think is a great topic for these times we're living in, and a great topic to kick off this leadership series. So today we have the opportunity to ground ourselves in the mistakes that we've made and the risks that we've taken and how to look at those positively, so they don't stifle us from taking future risks, which I think is very pertinent right now. But we'll be holding more workshops as a part of this series in the coming months this year, so please stay tuned and join us for those as well. And with that, I turn it over to our workshop leader, Shelley Danner.
Thank you so much, Abby. I've been really looking forward to coming together with you all, and just think this this series is so great, and really looking forward to diving in on this topic with all of you this morning. I do want to share a couple of things. I hope that everyone is ready and up for an interactive workshop. I know that, of course, we're virtual right now, but when we initially designed this, of course, it was meant to be in person. So I've tried to really put some thought and intention into how this can be an engaging and interactive experience for the next 60 minutes or so. You do not need to be on the video if you're not feeling like you want to do that. However, I will be making use of breakout rooms and asking you to engage with some exercises and activities, both individually and with a couple of other people in the workshop. So if you want to turn your video on or off throughout, you're welcome to do that. All right, let's dive in. So I want to share what our plan is for this workshop. Where are we going in the next 60 minutes or so? So there's three main pieces. We're going to be owning and playing with our failures a little bit. We're going to dive into that pretty quickly up front. We're going to look at failures and resilience as social impact and nonprofit leaders. And then we're going to design forward. So I've created a tool, a framework for all of us to use during this workshop called a Resiliency Roadmap. So really excited for you to just spend some time stepping into this space of looking at failure and resilience. Before we get going, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are really facing a very challenging time right now. There's a lot of things for everyone, individually and also collectively. So I really just want to honor and acknowledge that and just bring us into the present moment. So if we can all just take kind of a nice grounded seat at your desk, we're going to just take a couple of deep breaths. Just to kind of calm ourselves and center ourselves and really step into this present moment and really the topic at hand. So a couple of deep breaths. Maybe one more. And if you'd like to go on mute, now that would be great. Thank you. Okay. I want to also introduce a couple of important lenses that I'd like to ask you to embrace for the next hour. I imagine that these lenses that you all have as nonprofit and social impact leaders. So I just really want to elevate three mindsets that are really helpful when we're looking at failure and into resilience. If everyone can put their self on mute, please, that would be really helpful. Thank you. So the three mindsets are a curiosity mindset. So really coming into this of failure and resilience with an open-mindedness, and a curious mind. Let's also bring a compassionate mindset. So when we're talking and thinking and reflecting and working with this topic of failure, really bringing that compassion, that empathy is important as well. And then, of course, the growth mindset is so important. This is really critical to overcoming failure, bouncing back, being resilient, and really seeing that out of failure comes growth. So these are the mindsets: curiosity, compassion, and growth that we want to step into. All right, so what I'd like to do now is invite you to play. I have created a game of failure bingo, which was really kind of fun to be creative and do something that would get us to kind of start to be a little bit playful with our failures. So with this game, I'd like to invite you to step out of your comfort zone. I do acknowledge and recognize that it is uncomfortable to talk about our failures. And so I want to acknowledge that this is going to be a little bit of a stretch, but hopefully you're up for it. Also, it will be an opportunity to get to know some folks who are here in this virtual workshop. To have empathy, of course, whenever we're talking about failure, we want to have that thoughtfulness, sensitivity, and respect for the other person. And I really encourage you to share stories. So I'll walk you through this exercise and really encourage you to also share your feelings around failure when you're diving into your stories as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put you into breakout rooms with a partner. So there'll be 2 people in a breakout room. If you can put your attention to the chat box, there is a link to the failure bingo card so that you can do a screen share in your breakout room and you can have the bingo card to look at. I'm going to give about 5 minutes or so for you to play this game. And what I'd like you to do is we're really focused on just starting to step into sharing these stories. So looking at the bingo card and saying, maybe picking out some that you both have in common and then sharing those stories around it. Of course, if anyone does get a bingo, that's great, but this is really just a way for you to start looking at different kinds of failures, which ones might you have experienced, and sharing some stories around them. So I'm going to put us into breakout rooms. And hopefully everyone is able to, I'm just gonna reshare. Actually, thank you, Charnay, so much for just putting the failure bingo card link in. So if everyone wants to open that before I put you into your breakout room so that you have access to it on your computers, that would be great. And I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. There might be a few rooms that have 3 people, so you can play as a group of 3. And then I'll let you know when we're coming back. There'll be a broadcast and we'll come back in about 5 minutes. Hello. Did you just join, Robin?
I did. Hello.
Hey. I'm going to put you into a breakout room. We're doing a game of failure bingo right now.
Okay.
So I'll add you into a room.
Okay.
So
Failure bingo.
Let me see. Yes, I can do that.
Oops. I'm sorry. I pinched out. Wait, I came back too soon. I'm sorry. I just saw the button and I clicked it.
I think everyone's coming back in. How did that go for everyone?
It was good. That was actually my first time using breakout sessions. I didn't know that they existed in Zoom. So that was actually really fun to be able to just like get set aside with someone else and have some time to connect separately. So it was really cool.
That's great. We'll be using breakout rooms again as well.
Cool.
All right. Well, as everyone is coming back into the main room, I wanted to invite everyone to put in the chat what words or things are coming up for you around failure. So what words are coming up maybe from your discussion or anything around failure that came up for you from playing the bingo game? So I'm seeing guilt, anxiety, rumination, motivation. So that's a nice shift. Motivation and lack of motivation. Plans for moving forward. Stress, fear, owning mistakes. The end of the world. That sounds dire. Hi, Gabby. Open to sharing. Yeah, so my hope is that this was a nice warm up to get us into this space of really thinking about failures. And for I don't know about you all, but as I was creating this bingo sheet and looking at all the different options, I realized like, wow, I've experienced most of these failures. So, you know, we're not in it, we're in it together. We're not alone with failure. And I think that can be comforting a little bit as well. All right, so let's move forward into more learning about failure. So one thing that I want to share is that I will be providing a resource list. It will be a follow-up to the workshop, and it will go out in an email. I'm really excited about this resource list. I really did a lot of research around the topics of failure, resiliency, and also in the nonprofit social impact context. So there will be a lot of research, a lot of really good sources, a lot of great articles, podcast content that I will be providing to all of you. So what I want to go through during the workshop are just some key points that I think hopefully might be perhaps a little new to all of us. There's a lot of information out there around failure, but what I wanted to highlight during this workshop are some things that I've learned about failure that I have found to be really interesting and maybe not what I always hear. So when we're looking at failure, it's not only that we want to look at what did we fail at, so like we missed a deadline, or we spilled coffee, or we didn't get the job, but we want to also look at how did it happen, or how did we fail? And so there's an organization called the Failure Institute, and they have identified all 23 forms of how we fail. And I want you to really take a look at this list of words, because what it does is it really opens up the space of failure, and it makes us see that there are a lot of different ways that we fail. There's a lot of different ways that we come to it. And I think it helps loosen up all of the feelings that we have around failure. So how did we fail? And so I want to just take a pause and let you think about maybe a time where you really feel like you flopped or messed up, and maybe just see if you can identify which of these words you would associate with that specific experience of failure for yourself. So as we step further into diagnosing failure, why is this helpful? It helps us to tolerate failure better, and it opens up deeper learnings. And I think that's what we're all most interested in, is how to learn from our failure and how to grow from our failure. So I want to take us into a little bit of a deeper diagnosis. And I want to share, this is based on research from a professor at Harvard named Amy Edmondson. So not all failure is equal. There are actually 9 types of failure. And so I want to kind of walk us through this because, again, I think it's really interesting and it helps open up this space of failure and how we can understand ourselves in this space. So first I'm going to go through, you can also see that there is this spectrum, and we're going to talk about the blameworthy failure and the praiseworthy failure. But the 9 types of failures, so there's deviance. So when you're deviating from a prescribed process, you might say that could be where you're getting in trouble. Inattention, so this is where there's some carelessness involved. Inability, and I think it's really interesting to kind of call out its lack of skills, training, or competence. So it's not that you cannot do it, but there's a current or existing inability. Process inadequacy. So perhaps something faulty happened. A task challenge. So a task might be too hard to execute. There might be a lot of ambiguity around it. Process complexity. So a process might break down due to the complex factors involved. Uncertainty. I'm sure we can all relate to this one. When unforeseeable events come up and things happen because of that in an uncertain time or moment. Hypothesis testing. So this is where you're intentionally experimenting and trying to test an idea, and it might lead to unwanted results of some type of failure. And then exploratory testing. So this is where you're trying to uncover new knowledge. And if it's a failure, it might also lead to unwanted results. So these are the 9 different types of categories, or 9 different types of failure that Amy Edmondson lays out. And then this spectrum. So there's failure where we tend to blame, and often we blame ourselves, sometimes we blame others. And then there's failure that can actually be praised. And so as we continue, there's also 3 different lenses for looking at the spectrum of failure and these types of failure. So preventable failures are ones that you can solve for. So some of the ones, the deviance, the inattention, and the inability, those you can actually prevent by being more attentive, by not deviating, by learning new skills, gaining new competence. Then we have this bucket of complexity-related failures. And this is where it's really important. And I think as leaders in the social sector, and certainly, amidst the backdrop of COVID-19, this understanding and acknowledgement of complexity, navigating complexity, leading through complexity is really important to lift up, while it can be very challenging. Then we have something called intelligent failure. And I think that this is a really provocative concept, and I think it's really positive and helpful because it really does reframe failure so that we can see that it is actually intelligent, it's smart, it's healthy. And so innovation, as I'm sure, as you look at these different types of failure, the hypothesis testing, exploratory testing, that's really where innovation happens. Innovation can also happen when you're solving for task challenges, process complexity, when we're dealing with uncertainty. A lot of creativity and innovation can come out of those as well. So what I wanted to also share, which she does, which is a little bit of shifting more from the, away from blameworthy into this praiseworthy space. And when we move the complexity related types of failure into this praiseworthy, on more to the praiseworthy side of the spectrum, again, it opens up this positivity and hopefulness and understanding that when we're dealing with complex failures, they can also be smart failures or intelligent failures as well. And most importantly, they can be praised. And so it's all about shifting our view and the way that we're looking at failure. And so if we can see that not all of the failures that we encounter are blameworthy or negative, and often those actually can be preventable, and then we see that a lot of failure is actually praiseworthy, it brings about learning, we acknowledge that it's complex and we live and navigate through complexity all the time, and then we're really, really seeing that failures can be intelligent. So just to finish up on this point of intelligent failure, it shifts us to see failure as good, as healthy, as positive. It provides valuable new knowledge that can help a leader move forward toward future growth. It occurs when answers are not knowable in advance, especially because we often do encounter situations that we haven't been in before. And it helps us replace fear with experimentation. So as social impact and nonprofit leaders, where do we often see or feel failure? And this is a question that I invite you all to answer in the group chat if you'd like to chime in. I've just started out a list here. Of course, there's, I'm sure, many, many more spaces or experiences or areas within social impact and nonprofit where we do see or experience or feel failure. But a couple of ones that I've put up here are, we see failure around racial equity. We need to improve that. Socioeconomic equity. Funding is often an area within the nonprofit sector where I think people feel and experience failure. Fulfilling needs in communities we serve. Often it feels like we fall short. Also why we keep persevering. Personal career growth and mobility can often feel challenging within the nonprofit sector, especially if there's limited budget or you work for a small organization and the nonprofit doesn't really have room for growth. And what else? I see a couple of people responding. Lack of resources. Yes, most definitely. Being afraid of change. Yep, I think there's often in the nonprofit sector, I think we're really working to move away from this. Certainly Co.act and many of you all were trying to be more creative and innovative and to embrace change within the nonprofit social impact landscape as opposed to staying with tradition. Repeating the same power structures we sought to dismantle. Yes, our own mindset and ego. Definitely. Missed opportunities, feeling that we should have done more or done better. Definitely. Oh my goodness, that is one that rings so true in the nonprofit sector. We're so hard on ourselves. We always feel like we should do more or that we haven't done enough. Yeah, these are all excellent points. Thank you. Okay, so this is an image that I think we've probably seen before, but it's one that I like to show because, we often just see success, and we hear about it, but we don't always keep in our frame what really happens to get there. So it takes risks. We need to focus, set goals, have persistence. We need to fail in order to succeed. We need to take action. We need to sacrifice, we need to develop habits, we need to work hard. So I think this is just a fuller picture and really lifting up that failure is part of it. Failure is part of success. We've got a nice quote here from Oprah based on the wisdom of Maya Angelou, but really being thankful and trying to just have that gratitude for our failure experiences, because it is going to allow us to use that as information and to move forward on a path of growth. All right, so how do we step into resilience? How do we reframe, shift, rebrand, and move into resilience? So there are many ways that we can be resilient, and I would also, again, invite you to answer this question in the group chat. You all have really good ideas and thoughts. We're all leaders in this together with good ideas to share. But I've put some up on the screen here, and again, please add on in the group chat. How can we be resilient? Staying connected is really important. We all know in the nonprofit social impact space that you cannot go it alone. It takes a village, it takes a community, and having those relationships, those trusted relationships, that strong network, staying connected and in community is so important for resilience. Practicing self-care. We all know that self-care is so necessary, and that definitely supports being a resilient leader. Acknowledging vulnerability, knowing that we're whole people and that, you know, failure can feel vulnerable, but in order to be resilient, we need to acknowledge that vulnerability and not see it as a weakness, but see it as powerful. Uplifting and focusing on strengths, knowing what your strengths are and using those and keeping at them. This one is a one that I think is important, building up your safety net of confidence. So when we've experienced failure or challenging times and we're trying to be resilient, when we can remind ourselves of our history of successes or wins, that can remind us, like, we have experience with success. We have experience with overcoming adversity. And when you draw from your personal experience, that can really give you that safety net of confidence to be resilient and move forward. We've got some great ones in the chat. I'm gonna chime in, add those in a moment. Being on purpose. You know, when we're working in social, when you've made the choice or the decision to be in the social impact space or work in nonprofit, I believe you feel like you have that calling, and you are on purpose, you're purpose-driven, you're purpose-minded, and that is definitely helpful. When we're on purpose, we can be resilient. Perseverance. We all know that getting up when we fall down, trying again, trying some more, that's part of being resilient. Having gratitude and maintaining perspective. That's so important. Reframing, that's something we've talked about with failure already. We're going to talk about reframing a little bit more. Huge part of being a resilient leader. Experimenting and being willing to take risks, even if you've failed. That is part of resiliency. Creating plans and taking action. So we don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to be paralyzed. We want to pause and reflect when needed. And then we want to keep moving forward, creating better plans and taking action. And then the last one on my list is taking the long view. So realizing that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon is really important for resilience. All right, I'm gonna chime in from the group chat. We've got some great thoughts here around resilience. Knowing your worth, knowing when to say no and that it's okay to say no. So true. From Charnay, collaboration, absolutely. From Eric, he's a +1 to knowing your worth. And yes, just because you work in nonprofit or social impact does not mean you should settle or lower expectations. Absolutely. From Lauren, to believe a service that is greater than self. Yes, that ties into the having that purpose and that higher calling helps with being resilient. From Danny, hi Danny, it's so good to see you on here. Take time to reflect and process your experiences, absolutely. And we're actually going to soon move into an exercise around that reflection. From Abby, oh, she's expanding on vulnerability. Sharing your failures with people you trust, absolutely. There's something about, you know, one, reflecting, but two, speaking about this and kind of creating more of a norm around acknowledging failure and talking about failure is really important and helpful. Thank you all for chiming in. Okay, so I wanted to share, I'm not sure, I want to really make sure that we have enough time for the Resiliency Roadmap, but I wanted to offer some really helpful reflective reframing prompts. And these are ones that can really move us from a space of failure into resilience. And so, I think if I didn't say already, I will also be sharing the slides from this workshop as well. So you're going to get a really great package of a resiliency roadmap template, a list of resources with all kinds of articles on failure and resilience, as well as the slides. So I would encourage you to take some time outside of this workshop to really reflect using these prompts. So you can look at these prompts from kind of your individual experience or perspective. You can put the kind of lens on of, being a teammate on a team at work, or maybe, you're working on the side on a fundraiser or whatever it may be. And then like broadening yourself into this, like you are a social impact change maker. So looking at these prompts from these different lenses. But I learned when this learning matters because in light of this learning, ... and what are you going to do differently next time as a result of the experience that you went through, the failure experience. So these are great prompts that, again, just move us and shift us into this space of learning, growth, adaptation, resilience. Okay, so now what I would like to do is invite you to create your own resiliency roadmap. And let's see, we put the link, I'm gonna re-share the link here in 2 ways. Actually, Charnay just did, thank you so much. And just in case, I'm gonna put an actual link to the file. This is in a PowerPoint slide format so that you can fill this out yourself. You're also welcome to write it on a piece of paper by your desk, again, whatever is comfortable for you. But I'll just walk you through this. So this is an opportunity for you to reflect and to move from failure to resilience and action. So we have 5 columns in your resiliency roadmap, or 5 steps you'll take. So the first thing that I want, and this is an invitation, but I invite you to list out some key failures, rejection, shortcomings, experiences with a brief description. And I would say for this exercise, maybe if you want to work with like 3 to 5 for each of these steps, but really whatever works for you. It could be something that you're dealing with right now, a failure that you feel like you're in the midst of, or something was recent. You might want to dig back into your memory bank of a more significant failure. Step 2, you're going to focus on your learnings. So I'll ask you to reflect and reframe each of those failures, and then add a positive spin, an outcome that came following it, a gratitude, or an insight. And so again, it'll just be the learning that you have from the failure. So if you had 3 failures in column 1, you'll have your learnings for each of those 3 in column 2. Then we're going to step into honoring and lifting up your strengths. So this is the 3rd column, which is assets. So I want you to list out, and again, as many as you can think of, just attributes, values that you have that are impactful and helpful, your skill sets, your characteristics that are important that you express. Even thinking about some of the connections and networks that you have. Those can be an asset that you have, the contributions that you've made in the nonprofit or social impact space. So this is a column, this is a dump of all of the assets that you bring personally and professionally. Then we're going to move into number 4, ideas and opportunities. And this is where I'd like you to brainstorm areas or ways that you would like to move forward. bounce back, grow, adapt, pivot, try something, challenge yourself. So this is bringing you into how do you want to move forward? What are all these different ideas that you can generate for yourself? And then finally, the fifth step is creating a plan of action. I would suggest with the time that we have, maybe choosing just one or two of those ideas and getting specific with steps that you can take. What can you do today? What is one small thing you can do today, this week, this month? So what we're going to do is I'll put about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but about 5 minutes or so of just, we're going to have some quiet time so that you can do this exercise for yourself. And then what I'd like to do is invite you all to go into breakout rooms and share and discuss with some of the folks here on the call. So we're just going to take about 5 minutes of silence for you to fill out your own resiliency roadmap. All right, take another minute or so, and then I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. so that you can share something from your resiliency roadmap, and kind of, again, come together in this space of trust and maybe stepping a little bit out of your comfort zone, depending on how well you know each other, but really kind of coming together to share and talk about how you're able to shift, reframe, rebrand your failures into this space of resiliency and action. Okay. I'm going to move you into breakout rooms. Everyone's just coming back to the main room. But as we're all rejoining the main room, I'd like to ask if anyone is interested in sharing what is an action or a step that you are going to take as you move forward this afternoon, this week, this month. What did you chat about in your breakout rooms? If you'd like to share either in the chat or you're also welcome if there's one or two people that quickly would like to share, you know, you're welcome to.
Maybe I'll step in here because I didn't quite finish. The shortcoming that I struggle with is often the failure to try. When I'm seeking funding or trying to engage with funders, I have such a fear of being looked down on or being rejected that I hesitate and I don't actually make the call, submit the application, make the request. I mean, a positive spin might be that I'm cautious, I try to make sure I have everything together before I reach out, but I have not yet figured out a way that I can really pivot or challenge myself or develop actions to overcome. Because even though I know knowledge, my brain says, just do it. It's okay. It's okay to fail. You'll be fine. The anxiety still locks me. So I don't know if that's the best example because it's not complete. But
that's okay. Thank you for sharing. It's not easy to speak up about these. So really appreciate you being willing to share that. And I think the anxiety is something we can all relate to. And so, well, of course, I hope you'll be able to finish the roadmap to get yourself to action. But just as a reminder for all of us, even one step, one small step gets us, you know, further along the path than not doing it. So, you know, that might be a great place to kind of end, which is, you know, just really this positive encouragement to all of you that you've got this, that you are doing a great job as leaders in the nonprofit and social impact space, that, you know, of course we acknowledge it is challenging, but, you know, let's support each other and keep moving forward. You've all got this. Thank you so much for joining. I'm excited for you to receive the materials from the call. Again, the resource page that I put together has lots of awesome information and insight, as you know, on top of this workshop. I hope you'll keep using these, the roadmap and the prompts, the reflection prompts. And I hope you all stay safe and healthy and well. And I hope to see you at the next virtual event. Sharnay, Abby, or Kyla, did you want to say anything before I end the session?
Thanks so much, Shelley, for working with us, and special thank you to YNPN for partnering with us for the Social Impact Leader Series. We're so grateful. And thank you so much, everyone, for just tuning in and for this amazing experience. I did just send a little link for a survey. We'll also send that in an email, but if you all don't mind just helping us give us your feedback on this survey and just our thoughts, and we greatly appreciate it, and we can definitely use it to help inform future workshops. Also, there's an incentive, so if you do fill it out by next Tuesday before 5 p.m., you will be entered in a raffle for a gift card. So definitely please fill out that information. We'll also just recap all of this, as well as the resources and this recording in the video. But special thank you to Shelley for facilitating and YNPN for partnering with Co.act. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.